Hi, this is Bea from Sorcery Soap, and today we're going to make this little pig. Okay, so I have white, pink, and a little bit of neon, and I made these two colors. This, and a touch of that. This has more, this does not, it's just this and this. Okay. It's a little bit soft because once I just mix it, it gets a little soft, and then I usually let it rest a bit. So we'll make his body first. He has a little bit more purple in it, this does. Okay, and then I'm going to make the head. And the thing about when you make a little animal, the whole my objective to making it is to make it look a little bit cute. So even if I make a snake, which my guy calls Danger Noodle, even if I make a little Danger Noodle, I still want him to look cute. Unless, of course, I want it to look menacing, but I want it to look cute. Even my gargoyles are kind of cute. So you see what I just did? I just rolled it out like this. And in the book I talk about, in the book, The Magic of Soap Dough, I talk about steps to do basic shapes. This is just a basic shape. You start out with the basic shape. And I think the most important thing to figuring out how to make stuff in soap dough is figuring out the basic shapes and how they're assembled and in what order you make them, because they start to fall apart. Soap is trickier. Soap dough is much trickier than polymer clay. Polymer clay is like basically easy compared to soap dough. You get little cracks. The more you work with it, you want to try to make the shape and then just leave it, and then wait until it firms up a bit before you start to futz it and smooth things out. So here's that basic shape right there, and then we want his nose. And if you have any questions about what tools I'm using, sometimes I put them in the descriptions, but you can just leave me a message and I'll write it out. So we want a little tiny snub nose. He's going to have, that's a little bit too big right there. It is a little tiny. Have to have room to make all the stuff on there. Because we make them by hand, they're all going to be just slightly different, but the more you make them, the more your fingers will just remember how to make it. And once you start making a couple of them, then you start to get a feel for them. And so, okay. So there we go. So there's that. His nose is a little bit too big still. Okay. So once I start doing this, the guesswork is out of it. I know exactly where I'm going and what I have to do. I've already worked out all the details of what order things go in, and I think that might be the hardest part for some people, is to try and figure out even where to begin. Okay, so there's him. And we want him to have a little character. There. Okay, so his face is a little bit long. I like the original that I made, so we're going to leave that. And then if you see he has a sort of thick forehead right here. And then his eyes are on either side of his head, and he has like an indentation there. So we want him to have side eyes, sort of like this. Maybe a little bigger like that. And that's not exactly, ooh, I got soap dough in there. That's not exactly where his eye is going to go. I'll show you here in a second. So, and then hold it upside down. Oftentimes if you hold it upside down, you can put it in relatively easy and even. And you see things on it that you wouldn't see if you hold it directly up. Somebody asked me once, how do I keep little fuzzes from flying around? Well, I can do some magic, but I can't really do that. But Jeff showed me something that I didn't really think about, which is keeping a wet washcloth around to be able to wipe your tools off real quickly. Make sure those little pieces of soap dough accumulate really quickly. Okay, so there's his face. Don't worry about the little details and all that. We're going to do that once it's a little bit harder, but just so you get a working idea of where it all is. And then that's the last thing we're going to add, so I'm going to set that aside. So now this has been sitting here a little bit firmer, and you see how it's the tilt of his head right there? That's what we want to do. So we're going to do that. Tilt his head just a bit. Give him a little bit of an attitude. There we go. Okay, great. We're going to set that last. So, yep, okay. So now we're going to work on his feet. See his feet right there? Remember, somebody's going to wash with this, so like, you want to tell the story as quickly with the soap dough as you can without overworking it. If you start to overwork your soap dough, abandon that piece and just start a new piece. No big deal. Because look, it's not that big of a piece, right? It's better than giving yourself frustration. That's what I've learned. Okay. That looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit too thin. So now I put it like this because it's going to go around his body. Where is it? Like that. Okay. And we're not going to put his, so there's one leg. We're not going to put his little details in until we're all done. So we need another. Now his back legs. I kind of shaped him like an elephant, I think. Because we want little stubby legs. worry about it looking all rough just yet. So it's a little fiddly right now at this point, right? Okay, so I just attached it just enough. We're gonna leave it for a second and let it rest, but I attached it just enough, right? So I want him to stand straight. So we give him a little squish, adjust it like that. Okay. Smooth that out just a little bit. Smooth his little hiney out. Okay, so we're going to put his feet, the details of his feet in last. Wait till this firms up a bit. So the water I put inside here and smooth this out just a little bit. Not a lot, see, because it starts to loosen up. And then set him upside down if you can. And let him dry. And I mean, let that dry completely. So now we'll work on the head. Back on the head. So just that little bit of letting him set. It's got a little bit of previous soap on him or something right there. Oop, there we go. Okay, so see, and you don't have to worry too much about that because just a little bit for right now. Because if we start moving it around, it's going to crack. Okay, and then let's see his nose. There. And then we're going to put his mouth in later, because I'm going to move it around a bit. So I have these tools here that I like for eyes. They're very inexpensive, and they're meant for nails. So apparently you take a little color of a dot of paint and you put it on your nail. Ooh, I don't want to look at my nails. My nails are nice, but they're dry from using soap dough. Anyway, so you do this. This is the size that I like right here. For eyeballs, you can see right here. And then I have a couple different consistencies of soap dough going on. So for eyeballs, I like a little firmer because I want them to look a little shinier. See how shiny that is? Okay, so I know that if I do that, just that, I've done it a bazillion times. And little spheres are seriously hard, just so you know, if you've never done this before. See, maybe. Little round balls are really hard. That's why in the book I say to practice with the little round balls, making little round balls, and you get a feeling for soap dough, because they really are hard to do perfectly. Okay. I like them to look like sugar pearls, like you go, oh wait, that's not really handmade. There. Let's see. Okay, good. So now this guy, and we want to look straight on. See how my nose is a little bit wonky? That's okay. His head is going to be tilted sideways. It won't matter. So I look straight on. And now the other thing is pigs have odd eyes because they're kind of direct. They have a big round head, and they're on the either side of their head, but they're not like rabbit eyes, which are on either side. They want to see like 180 one side and 180 another side, and their direct vision, like a horse's direct ahead vision, isn't quite as good. So it helps you remember where the eyes are placed, because that's the only thing I kind of try to get accurate. The rest of it is just fairy tale stuff. So, and I make it up sometimes. I would just decide, well, that's where I want his eyes. So here's the other thing too. If the brow's too heavy, that makes him look mean. So we don't want him to look mean. See right there, I made him look like he's mad. And it's starting to crack, so I'm gonna paint a little water on it to keep it soft. Okay. Stick that in there. Whoop. Stick that guy in there. Look at that. See, his little nose is cracking a bit. It's okay, just paint a little water on there. Okay, there we go. Now we're gonna let that rest for a second, all that shenanigans. Let's see how we are with that. It looks pretty good. You just got a little fur, a little feather, or dust. Lint. Okay. So let's check to make sure his head's right. Okay, good. I'll just put a little bit in here. Okay. See, make sure. Yep. Okay, now we're going to let him be. We want to set him. You can see how I tilted his head just ever so slightly, like that. Give him a little bit of a attitude. Now, this is the tricky part. You just want to, I want him to hold on, and I don't want to see that joint too much. Like that. And it's sort of a delicate balance, so this is what I'm going to do for right now, and then I'm going to let it rest for a couple minutes. So you won't see that, but that's important, because I don't want you to get frustrated while you're doing this and go, how did she get it to? It's because I'm going to stop the video and let this dry. And you can see how wet it is right there. And then I'm going to prop him up right here and leave him be, and don't touch him. Like, don't, absolutely no fiddly. Okay, so I think this is pretty dry. But it's still a little bit wet, so I can move it around a bit. Okay, you can see he's a little firmer now. His legs are a little janky. Okay, so I'm going to put his little toes in. Okay, now we're going to put his ears on. To put him over there. His legs are a little different than this guy's legs, but you can see how it's less fiddly. You can see how he's going to turn out anyway. Okay, so now we'll make his ears. And I'm going to set his tail up right now. When I made his tail here, I think it should be a little less fat. A little thinner. And then we just spin him around. Yeah, see, it turned out just about as fat. Okay, so we want to leave, that's going to be the in to stick it into him. And we'll let that firm up just a bit. Okay, now his ears. Okay, like that. That's how I make almost all ears, just like that. Now, we don't want them too big. So this is going to be the inroad into his head. And then sort of, let's see, that's a little bit big. Okay. Sort of like that. That's a little bit big too though, but he's kind of modeled after Wilbur, so before we do that, let's put his mouth in. Okay, so we want his mouth to be a little bit sideways. See how he's got a little sideways? So that just straight line doesn't make him look very happy, so we make him a little curved up like this, and then yeah, you can see there. So it's like a little sideways smile, and you can move that around a bit. There. Okay. So let's put his ear positions in. So ears go directly back from the eyes. Make a little hole. And then here's going to be 1, and here's going to be 2. Okay. I'll get that sorted, Wilbur, don't worry. Okay. So where's my this? There you go. Once again, we're going to put these together. Oh, that's a little big. Let's take that off. He wants to sit closer to the head. Oops, 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 oops. There we go. Okay. So and see how it looks right there? So we want to soften that a bit, push it down to his head, and sort of give him a little character there. And a little bit of, just a little bit of water in there. And then stick that right there. Oops, that ear's way too big. Let's take that off, gotta match the other ear. Okay, let's stick him in. So he has little Wilbur ears. Okay, he's got a little sideways smile, good. Where's this? And so this takes a really fine touch because you got to be really careful with this part right here. Let me put this here. The reason I do this is because the less joins I have, the less fear I have of things breaking off. They sort of dry together as one piece. That's the whole point. Plus, to me, I want it to look a little magical, like you go, oh, did that get formed all in one piece? I don't like those joins too much. Sometimes it's totally okay. And then once you make one, keep it in this, keep practicing. And I save one almost of everything I make, just one little embellishment, not the whole soap, because I want to see exactly what my fingers created. I mean, I can remember it, but I can tell you there's times when it, you know, months, maybe even a year's gone by since I've made something and I completely forgot. But then once I start looking at it again, I go, oh yeah, like my fingers remember what I did. I don't know if that helps, but because I could sort of back design things. And I mean, I think it's valuable once you've figured something out in order to keep it in your list of things that you can make. There. I made his legs a little closer together for this one. That's okay. He's a little sturdier than the other guy. Okay, so there we go. And he's got, and that's the other thing too, like this guy's head's a little bigger than his body. Oftentimes if you make the eyes bigger or the head a little bigger, it makes him look a little cuter. Bring his ears forward. Okay, now we want to put his tail on. Okay, so I think his tail should be just in the middle. His ears look a little thick, don't they? There. A little bit of water. Stick his tail right there. And now the trick is to leave him be and let him cure. And then he'll be as hard as that guy. Oh, and I can see that little fuzz right there. There's another little fuzz right there. No fuzzes. One right there. So there you go. There's a little pig for you. As long as there aren't any bubbles, there's no reason to spray it with alcohol at this stage. But you can see as I'm painting, I'm getting little bubbles. One of the things alcohol will do is make things slip apart. It'll cure it, but it also make things slippery. So in a different way than water. Water makes them slippery initially and then they just stick together. Alcohol has too much alcohol in it, not enough water to make things stick together. So I give him a little spray so that, because those bubbles around his eyes won't go away. They'll dry, bubbly, and they're really hard to get out. So anyway, there you go. There's your little pig.